unbelievable. He rewrote the history books last night, becoming the first player in NFL history to win multiple championships and multiple league MVPs within his first 6 seasons. Only 3 quarterbacks have won 2 NFL MVPs, 2 Super Bowl MVPs in NFL history. That's Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, and Joe Montana. Pretty good company to be in. RC, is Mahomes a top 3 quarterback all time?
You ain't got to finish it. Yes.
All time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I was the guy Friday that was like, I don't want to have this conversation before the game, but I never said I didn't want to have it. When you think about Patrick
If he
Mahomes,
walked away right now.
Oh, first off, he walks away right now. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he's third on the list.
Okay.
Because you have to think about this. He has as many Super Bowls as Peyton Manning, right? Who is somebody we consider to be one of the greatest of all time. He has more than Drew Brees, more than Aaron Rodgers. So we can't even really talk about the championships. But it's when you cut the film on, right? There is no draft in the world that when you just cut the film on and you don't give statistics, you don't give stories, you don't talk about MVPs, you're not talking about Super Bowl wins, and you said, when you watch Tom Brady play, would you pick him over Patrick Mahomes? No. When you watch Joe Montana play, would you pick him over Patrick Mahomes? No. So now
I don't know. I might be coming back at you, RC, a little bit.
No. Like Joe Montana was amazing.
And a great athlete.
Great athlete.
Yeah.
Totally.
All of those things. But when we watch Patrick Mahomes do things we've never seen people do, now you have to move over to this. Is he winning? Is that individual play leading his team to success? And the proof is in the pudding. 5 straight AFC championships, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 Super Bowl championships, and was the best player in the one they lost. They just ain't have nobody. That dude, man, he's a top 3 quarterback for me all time.
Well,
I'm not going to argue against Patrick Mahomes, and RC makes a stellar case for Patrick Mahomes. Has Patrick Montana didn't do? And the answer is no.
No.
He hadn't. So we're going to get there, by the way. I love what you said the other day before the game. And I sort of still feel like that we got time.
Yeah.
We don't have to rush into it. Patrick Mahomes, apparently, if he has health, he's going to be there. I just think Montana gets overlooked for some of the modern passing game with Bill Walsh.
That's true.
They invented it. And so they're building on what Walsh and Montana and Jerry Rice and all that incredible cadre of players did. Yeah. So I'm not going to argue against Mahomes. I believe everything RC said. I believe in it. But another guy who doesn't get mentioned because his team was so bad, and that's John Elway, the first 3 teams.
Yeah.
John Elway went 5 times. Yeah. 2 of those. Tell me the Hall of Fame offensive player John Elway played with, and the answer would be none. Now he got TD late in the career for the second.
That's when he went back.
Shannon late. He got those 2 guys late.
Yeah.
He didn't have those guys early. He went to the Super Bowl by himself, essentially 3 times. But Patrick Mahomes is going to ascend. I may not ready to be crowning him today. Where do you have him
right now, Michael?
4th or 5th, no lower.
But that's still great.
He's only in his 6th
no question.
season.
It is.
I will say this to you. I have him no lower than 3. For all the things that RC articulated, I don't need to regurgitate that. It speaks for itself. The first 5 years as a starter. You say 6 years. No. He started for 5 years.
Right. Yeah,
and in the 5 years, five years that he's played, he's never been out of the conference championship game.
Crazy.
Ever. And he went to Super Bowl 3 times, won 2 titles.
I'm going to stop calling it the first 6 seasons.
Here's the thing that I would say when we say, I won't eclipse him over Montana for this one reason. And it's the same thing. It's the same reason I refuse to give LeBron the nod over MJ.
Okay.
We have to pay attention to the times that you were playing in and the adverse circumstances that you were experiencing because of the way the game was called at that particular moment in time. I've heard Ray Lewis literally ignite a cadre of defensive players throughout the universe because it's such a crime in his mind how you can't play defense the way defense is supposed to be played in the NFL. The ticky-tack rules, you breathe on a quarterback, all of a sudden you can get thrown out of a game, etc., etc. You got all of this stuff going on. That's the era we're living in. That is not the era Joe Montana played in. It was far more physical, far more volatile. And as defensive players, you were allowed to get away with far more. And despite that, Joe Montana did what he did. And so when you look at it from that perspective, yes, we could have a different conversation once Patrick Mahomes gets to 4 Super Bowls, which I think he will. But what can't what can't be ignored is the times that we're living in, how football is called today.
Well, Ryan and Dan both, they caught the end of it. They're part of the bridge from the football that we're talking about, where Dan could get hit with a forearm in the head and no flag was coming.
From RC.
And these guys, I don't mean to make y'all sound old because I'm a lot older, but you were in that bridge. You watched it, to what Stephen A. is talking about. Look, I sat there, I stood on the sideline at the end of games and watched Joe Montana. Remember, Joe Montana's career, that back end was lessened by the shots that he took. We talked about Richard Dent earlier, from players like that, and he still won 4 and didn't lose any. It could have had more. And goes to Kansas City and gets to a championship game.
No, it's a great point. Dan, where are you on this?
I mean, you guys know I have him at second all time. And I was saying this morning with RC. I really think, like, we have to sit in the greatness of Patrick Mahomes and just appreciate it. I really do. Like, as both a player and a person off the field. I mean, the NFL is so fortunate to have him as the face of their league. He's got every reason to be conceited, egotistical. Like, he's a tremendous human being and equally as good of a player. But I think we need to point out exactly what he's accomplished. Okay, so in his first 6 seasons, because we've talked a little bit about this, but everything. So the guy's gone to 5 straight Pro Bowls. He's won 5 straight division titles. He's got 5 straight 12 or more win seasons. He's gone to 5 straight conference championship games. He's got 2 Super Bowl championships, 2 MVPs, and 2 Super Bowl MVPs. That's the greatest start to a career ever. Ever. Okay? And I think the second thing, and Legend Wilbon and Stephen A. probably know a little bit better than I do about this. I think the difference about Patrick, in my eyes, to some of the guys that you are mentioning, he's been to 3 Super Bowls. He's 2-1 in those 3 Super Bowls. And I could make the case that in all 3, he hasn't had the better team. Yet he's won both. Well, I would imagine Montana in those Super Bowls had better teams. I would imagine Brady in a great majority of his Super Bowls had better teams. Patrick, you can make the case, hasn't had the better team in all 3 of the Super Bowl appearances, and he's won 2 of them. That's different than so many quarterbacks that have won those championships.
I just want to pause on that. Do you agree with that? When he's talking about the better teams, when we look at Tom Brady and...
Well, I think Tom, when you go early on in his career, had the better teams around him, and then Tom's made his team. Tom made his teams better later on in his career. But when you think of Patrick Mahomes in the 3, I do agree with Dan. I picked Philadelphia because I thought Philly had the better roster. And then obviously playing Tampa, it was the same way.
Same here.
Cosign.
Well, that's what says it all. I mean, Patrick Mahomes beat a better team. And he made them look inferior in the second half.
Same thing with San Fran.
And we know that's not the case, but that's how they looked.
So here's a crazy stat for you. So QBR, the perfect QBR is 100. You can't get higher than that. In the second half, Patrick Mahomes on one leg had a 99.4 QBR.
Yeah. Well, yesterday, speaking of one leg, Dan,
13 to 14.
That's worth revisiting. Right? The fact that we saw Mahomes in that pain, and you didn't know what was going to happen in the moment on the sideline. I'm interested to hear him today, perhaps in a secondary situation.
Well, I think he Paul pierced us.
Don't you put that out there, Ricky Bobby. Don't you put that out there, Ricky Bobby.
He didn't have a wheelchair. He didn't have a wheelchair.
Wait, I just got to say one thing, though. Did you feel like he really amped it up when they were kind of losing?
I don't know if it was because they were losing, but he played into it really well.
Okay.
He didn't pull out the wheelchair, though. He didn't do that.
But in that moment, when he goes to the bench and so I bought it, right? I'm in the academy. I'm sorry, I'm buying it. And I'm thinking, wow, to deliver this performance on that one leg, Dan, I thought that was a point absolutely worth underscoring.
And it would be one thing. It would be one thing, guys, if the Eagles came out there looking like deers in headlights. But they didn't. They came out balling.
And we need to get into that.
And they were up 10 at the half.
Well, Stephen, why couldn't they figure out some? Their coaching staff had to figure out a way to pressure Mahomes. There's one thing you've got to do. They spoke to this all week, and they couldn't get that done.
We're up against
at all.
We're up against it. I let that one go. All right, still to come on First Take. Plenty more from Arizona. We're having a ton of fun. Don't go anywhere. Does Andy Reid